Wait, hold on.
Well, you don't know all the realities, right? Just like me.
I don't know the reasons why they entered this village or why they haven't left it. That's some kind of operational tactical information. However, there is a general situation. You attacked head on, and if you'll excuse my language, you got a bloody nose. You retreated from that territory, and now you are actively entrenching yourselves in Kherson, as well as in the Belgorod, Kursk, and Voronezh regions. Are these trenches being prepared to launch an offensive on Kiev?
Factually, you are correct, but you have to understand what's behind it. You have to at least try to, well, logically, what's behind it.
What? Well, try to convince me.
No, I'm with you. You're intelligent, you know historical facts, and you can weigh them. It's interesting to discuss my perspective with you. Yes, you're right that at some point we went in, but what happened after that? You understand it's not just Russia and Ukraine who are having a dialogue here. There are also NATO countries involved, and there are also...
So you're at war with NATO?
Exactly. No, I'm not. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, then what are you saying? The dialogue is happening within the framework of this coalition where...
Of course, the NATO countries support us 100%.
So, at some point, just imagine if this situation is even possible. Here you have an army that has entered a foreign country, but it's scattered. There's no unified front line of military operations.
No unified front line?
After that,
So the front line stretches from the northern part of the Luhansk region all the way down to the southern area near Kherson. There is no front line as such, not like there was during the Great Patriotic War.
it's not on Snake Island.
What isn't?
Well, a general
There can't be a front line on Snake Island. What about Snake Island?
understood it's not present in Kiev.
What?
Well, you and I are talking about the front line.
You're using the term front line, and I'm also using the term front line. But we are interpreting that with entirely different meanings. When you hear the word front line, you are most likely envisioning a line of engagement, much like it was during the Great Patriotic War. Trenches on both sides, a barbed wire front line, and reconnaissance scouts crossing to the other side to go for intelligence gathering. Wars are just not fought that way anymore. But that doesn't change the nature of the front line and combat operations.
Yes, but there is no common front line. Well, no single front line.
Isn't there a unified command on the Russian side? Is there no division into separate groups? They just removed the commander of the center group yesterday.
There are many disjointed units positioned across the territory of Ukraine.
Are you trying to say they don't have a unified command?
No, they're not connected. They don't have...
That's your issue entirely, a severe problem stemming from a lack of proper communication within your army. That's absolutely...
I agree. A decision is made. A decision is made to pull all these disjointed units back into a single front line. They pulled back.
Why?
You know what happened next. Putin, he's also a lawyer by education, isn't he, originally? He states, very well, we will proceed within the established bounds of international law. Thus, we legitimize our presence on the territory of Ukraine. What is he doing?
Nobody cares about the legitimization of occupying Ukrainian territory. Nobody. Hold on. In March, 141 countries clearly stated that Russia is an occupier. No one has recognized these so-called pseudo-referendums of yours. They hold absolutely no significance. So, legally speaking, you are free to do whatever you please. For instance, you could issue certain decrees and so forth. For the international community, for Ukraine, and for the armed forces of Ukraine, these things hold absolutely no significance. These are just simple documents that you adopt internally for your own benefit, to make yourselves look good, for your society, so that your society believes in something there.
Hold on, but exactly how many international observers were present in Luhansk and Donetsk when that referendum took place?
There were none.
Why weren't there?
Well, simply because there wasn't a single official delegation present.
In fact, now, according to...
In fact, some individual representatives of some right-wing, left-wing parties came. Individual representatives, not a single official one. Not one delegation. Not from any international organization or country was there. Nobody recognized the pseudo-referendums in 2014, and nobody has recognized them this year either. This is merely the creation of a legal reality. You are creating it and continue to create it. That's your internal affair. It means nothing to us.
Look, as a result of this created reality, this legitimization, let's say it's our perspective, right? Let's say it's exclusively Putin's vision, okay? After this legitimization, a coalition forms with the world's three largest armies. That's China.
Ah, just more hypotheticals, I understand. There will be no coalition, absolutely none.
But it already exists on paper now.
There is no such thing. Not even on paper is there any mention of it, nor in Xi Jinping's announcements, nor in the statements of the Indian president. There's nothing at all. That's just your wish, so to speak, to form a coalition right now and then proceed to do something.
And then I have a question. Why did Xi Jinping just recall Chinese citizens from Ukraine from that territory?
We'll see what happens. Look, you're talking about hypothetical realities, possible ones that may or may not materialize. I don't deny the possibility of these realities being created. However, up until today, both China and India have maintained a neutral position when it comes to UN voting. They have never once supported Russia. They didn't support Ukraine, true, but they didn't support Russia either. Russia was supported by North Korea, Syria, Eritrea, Nicaragua, and Cuba. Sometimes there are a few variations. But this is essentially the creation of some kind of imaginary coalition. Why would China form a coalition with Russia just for Russia to subjugate Ukraine? What benefit would that bring China?
Well, that's exactly the point. I'm trying to figure it out.
Understand what?
Why does China need this? I'm curious.
China hasn't done anything yet. There's nothing to even discuss. I ask you a question. Why did Russia attack Ukraine? I presented my perspective on the situation and attempted, with your input, to demonstrate that your understanding of the situation is, shall we say, erroneous and does not align with the true realities. It aligns with Russian propaganda, but it doesn't align with realities or logic. So by not wanting Ukraine to become a member of NATO, you actually ended up with new NATO members, Finland and Sweden. This is truly an unprecedented situation. Sweden remained a neutral country for 3 centuries, ever since its defeat in the Battle of Poltava in 1709. Sweden did not take part in any conflicts or alliances during that time. You acquired a country that had been neutral for 300 years and made it a NATO member. Do you consider that a smart policy?
Regarding NATO, I can tell you that you might as well accuse me of changing my tune now. Yes, but you asked a very common question, one that almost everyone here who has even a basic understanding of NATO poses. I provided you with a conventional response, and you yourself acknowledged that my answer was indeed conventional.
It's a template, it doesn't work in reality.
It may not work, but I needed to engage you in dialogue. To be honest, I'm less concerned with that story. I'm interested in what happens next. I'm trying to understand.
We don't know what will happen next.
Why this coalition then?
There isn't a coalition. However, there is a coalition formed between Ukraine and Western nations. There's a meeting of defense ministers in the Ramstein format at the base in Germany. There's support from NATO countries, individual states, and so on and so forth. There is no actual coalition of Russia, China, and India. Absolutely none.
All right.
There's the purchase of Shahed 136 drones from Iran, which you then relabel with stickers as Giran 1. That certainly exists. And with Iran, there is indeed some kind of coalition. And even then, Iran officially says those aren't our Shaheds. Those are the realities.
Look, then I'll ask a simple question and we can basically end it there if you don't have any more questions.
I have no questions for you.
So, what's your prediction for the upcoming 3 months?
I'm not a military strategist or tactician, so I don't make such forecasts. I've outlined the general situation for you, what I would like to see happen. I don't know if the military political leadership of Ukraine desires what I've articulated, but personally, I would certainly wish for it. I would also advocate for creating it, just as it was created throughout modern history, beginning almost with the year 1618, nearly with the Peace of Westphalia, the establishment of so-called buffer states. Furthermore, I would establish various people's republics in places like Belgorod and Voronezh, situated between Ukraine and a hypothetical Muscovy. These would feature pro-Ukrainian governments, essentially managed directly from Ukraine. And if the idea of attacking Ukraine were to arise in your mind once more, you would first become entangled in these very buffer states. This has been the practice for 300 years.
Okay. Russia is doing the same thing now.
Russia is doing things differently and nothing is getting accomplished. Russia is doing the same thing now. However, it did declare for the denazification and demilitarization of Ukraine. But in reality, it's establishing certain buffer states wherever it has the opportunity to do that. There's this philosophical saying, if you didn't reach your desired goal, then what you did achieve becomes what you wanted. You understand? When you weren't able to immediately capture Kiev, you started spouting fantasies about some kind of buffer zones and so on.
You know, I don't think there was ever a desire to capture Kiev immediately. That's my feeling.
That's your feeling. But in reality, when your convoys were bombed, they found dress uniforms and even a military orchestra that you had sent there, hoping to hold a parade. That's the actual truth of the matter, based on the facts. These facts might be Ukrainian propaganda. I'm not denying that. But the reality is you wanted to take Kiev head on and you failed.
Thanks for your time and the conversation. It was very interesting.
You're welcome. Get in touch if you need anything.